Hello, and welcome project managers to our channel once again. And today's topic is risk management in agile projects. This is a free webinar, and we hope that you find it useful. Now, I'm going to host this webinar, and we have a distinguished speaker, my good friend Sudeep Singh. Uh, and I know Sudeep for a lot of years now, and it's a pleasure to have him on board. Welcome on board, Sudeep.
Thank you. Thanks, JD. Glad to be here.
Okay, I'm really excited. So let's get started. Um, so let me quickly introduce about Sudeep. So Sudeep, uh, uh, from my familiarity, he's a great project management coach and also a program management coach. So he has more than 20 years of experience. He's based out of a city called Bangalore in India, and his specialization is in strategic transformation, cybersecurity, Gen AI, and automation expert. Now, the Gen AI particularly interests me. That makes me plan further webinars down the line. And out of 20 years, 17 years is in program and project management. He's also a PMP from PMI, ACP from PMI. He is a PMI authorized PMP trainer, and apart from that, he's also a PSM from Scrum.org and ITIL certified from Axelos, right? So both PMP and ITIL, great combination of project management and operations. Well, I think we can get started. So before that, I would like to quickly remind our audience that we have a PMP batch that's starting on 5th of July, and this covers all the PMP syllabus. And on top of that, we are also training people hands-on Microsoft Project and Jira. If you are interested, you can reach out to us in WhatsApp or register yourself on the link in the description. All right, without much delay, I'll hand it over to Sudeep. You can start with the agenda. Go ahead, Sudeep.
Thank you. Thanks, JD. And first of all, thank you for having me on this webinar. It feels great to connect to the audience. And, you have said such great things about me, but that does not diminish your capabilities as a program and, PMP trainer, program management and project management trainer. So most of the things that I do in today's world or in today's project management career or in my PMP training courses, most of them I have learned from you. So thanks for that. All right, talking about the agenda that we have today, talking about the topic that we have today, we are going to discuss few of the areas about risk management in terms of the various statistics related to risk management. We will try to really deep dive into the issue or into the problem and understand it, why risk arises on projects and how do we respond to risks. Over and above that, we will also take a look at what kind of possible solutions we can implement for our projects, what are the various techniques we can implement for our projects, and to help give the audience a better context and better understanding, we will also pick up a few case studies. All right. So talking about the statistics, do you know that more than 19% of the projects fail outright because of poor risk management and risk identification? On top of that, nearly 52% of the projects are already challenged because of improper risk analysis or risk mitigation strategies. And it is not that we are saying this, it has been well established by the Standish Group's chaos report, where this identification was already made, wherein the project is already challenged because of budget, it is challenged because of fewer features than what was originally planned for, or there is a certain delay with the delivery of the projects. Looking at all of these failures, there is still a silver lining. That is, the agile projects, however, have a higher success rate compared to the traditional predictive methods. 42% of agile projects succeed, whereas only 26% of waterfall projects succeed. This was again published in the Standish Group's same chaos report. Why this happens is because primarily agile already has an inherent mechanism for adapting to risks and for accommodating or responding to risks as and when they come, because of the various loops or cycles or sprints or iterations you run in agile projects. Whereas with waterfall or with predictive, because primarily you are focusing on the complete execution of the project, that is why we have less time to identify, analyze, and respond to our risks.
Exactly. Since we have iterations in Agile, we are carrying very little stake on top of our head. Whereas in Waterfall, you are carrying the entire project scope at any given point of the time. It's better. Agile copes better with risk.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the key takeaway here is that Agile's iterative approach helps mitigate the various risks early, reducing the likelihood of failure, as well as on top of that, Agile already has the feedback collection mechanism involved or ingrained into its sprints, into its life cycle. And that is where we can take a lot of feedback, we can implement that feedback and reduce either the probability or the impact of the risk on our projects. Now, moving on to the most common risks in Agile project. It is not that Agile projects do not have risk. Even though they are better equipped at managing risks, they still have risks, right? For that matter, 48% of the Agile projects have this organizational culture at odds with Agile values. That is, the organizational culture does not cooperate or do not go together with the Agile values that Agile projects are managed upon. In 44% of the projects, there is a certain lack of skill or experience with Agile methods. People who are working on the projects, they do not have the complete understanding or knowledge of Agile methodology. In 42% of the cases, the process or the practices that the team is following are inconsistent. They are not consistent with Agile values, with Agile methodologies, or with the whole project overall. Okay. And in 38% of the cases, there's a certain lack of leadership participation, because the leadership thinks that, the project manager or the program manager is going to take the complete responsibility and accountability of the project or of the program, and therefore they do not get involved with the projects many a times, which is not appropriate, because this lack of participation can cost us dearly at a later part of the project, right? This survey was done by Digital AI, which is formerly known as version 1, and all this information was identified and captured in their own survey.
I can connect with each and every reason, particularly the last one, lack of leadership participation, right? Until a proper scaled agile framework came into picture, every program layer that I came across, they thought agile is a problem for the project teams, and their mindset used to be in waterfall. So these numbers are exactly my experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And even unfortunately, even in today's world, even with Agile spreading its wing over the project management domain and organizations adapting to Agile methodology, still leaders do not believe that they should participate in day-to-day project management or in day-to-day activities of the project, because they think that as soon as the project has gone ahead, it is not going to need any kind of support. It is not going to need any kind of collaboration or any kind of blocker removal from the leadership perspective, right?
Yes.
So the key takeaway here is that these challenges, when you think about them, these challenges highlight the importance of addressing cultural, skill, and process related risks in agile environments. So agile in its own methodology, in its own life cycle, is already encompassing all the risks and also giving us enough opportunities to respond to those risks. But if you just keep on focusing on the agile methodology, in that case also you are not going to help resolve your risks or help identify or mitigate your risks properly or completely for your projects. Another statistic for you: agile projects are 28% more successful than traditional projects. And this was found in a study by PwC, right? The key reasons are that The key reasons are that in Agile, we have a frequent delivery of value, wherein we are focusing on delivering value to the end user or to the customer, collecting feedback, which thus helps us in reducing the risk of delivery of the wrong product or of the wrong deliverable to the end user or to the customer. As I mentioned previously, we have feedback loops, continuous feedback loops with Agile, which helps us ensure that we continuously take information, collect information from the customer and from the end users and use it or implement it in our next cycle, in our next loop, in our next iteration or batch or sprint to identify and address the risks as early as possible. Also, Agile fosters on adaptability and on flexibility. So the adaptability to change for Agile projects helps us reduce the impact of unforeseen risks. Remember, a project manager should be able to foresee as much and as many risks as possible for the project so that those risk mitigation strategies can be taken into account and they can be implemented as and when relevant during the course of the project. So this is the basic benefit, or primary rather, the benefit of Agile risk management, that Agile's inbuilt nature, the Agile's iterative nature inherently supports better risk management. Okay, another statistic for you. According to CSAT's report, the average cost of technical debt in organization per line of code to fix is $3.61. If you think about it, if you think about the magnitude of this expense, which is costing the organization, this is really, really huge, because from a project perspective, you would already have this understanding that for writing a line of code, you don't spend this much of money. Whereas from a technical debt perspective itself, you are spending more money or more cost in managing the risk as a technical debt. You are spending more in managing the technical debt as risk. So in Agile projects, technical debt often arises due to rushed sprints wherein the team starts focusing on speed rather than the quality, because the team is going to have their velocity identified. It is not always required for the team to focus on speed, because they can maintain their velocity as they move forward with the project, and eventually, if the planning is appropriate, the whole project will get completed in its due course, within its due budget. So project teams tend to make this mistake that they try to pick pace over quality, and that is where they end up generating a lot more risk for the project. Also, in certain cases, they lack the refactoring time. They do not address the code quality in the iterations. They think that these are going to be covered at a later point in time during the reviews, and at that point in time we will resolve them if and when problems come up. They do not think about the risks they are generating because of this, because as you move forward with the project, the risks are going to get costlier and costlier to mitigate. So the sooner you identify a risk and the sooner you respond to a risk, the easier it would be for you to manage the project and to manage the risk for your project. Okay, so the key takeaway in this particular situation is that we need to manage the technical debt as a critical risk in Agile projects, and teams must be able to balance their speed with quality. They should not compromise quality for speed, but at the same time, they should not reduce their pace, reduce their velocity just to say that we are focusing more on quality. Both of them have to be balanced properly. It is a balancing act when it comes to your project management in most of the cases. Now, another thing, over and above our technical debt, we also have certain risks from the stakeholder engagement, because stakeholders are an area where we do not manage things, we engage them. And the moment we start dropping that engagement from a stakeholder perspective, we are essentially giving more way, more opportunity for risks to occur on our project, right? As per a study done by PMI, as per a report done by PMI, 37% of project failures are linked to poor communication and stakeholder engagement. Just because the stakeholders are not available, they are not responding, they are not taking accountability, they are not giving the support that the project needs at various point in time, we can generate these additional risks for the project. So in Agile, this kind of risk can be mitigated through having daily stand-ups. Even if it is just a short time-boxed meeting, even if it is not standing up essentially during your meetings, but still have your stand-ups regularly for your projects to ensure that the stakeholders are aligned with the project at any given point in time. Also ensure that you conduct your sprint reviews, because you know um, when you're when you're doing your sprint reviews, when you're giving the demos, the primary reason behind these reviews and behind these demos are to collect stakeholder feedback, so that you can implement those feedbacks in the next cycle, in the next sprint, in the next iteration. So please do not skip them. I know of many, project management professionals or project teams who think that this is a waste of time, but it is again not completely true. If you try to cut corners with your project at this particular point in time with the mandatory activities, with the necessary activities, you are going to pay the price a lot higher as you move forward with the project. Also try to keep your backlogs transparent. Try to use your task boards or Kanban boards as much as possible. You use your information radiators as much as possible, because the stakeholders should be kept informed at any given point in time as to what progress the project is making, or for that matter, where the project is getting blocked or is getting impeded, so that they can provide their assistance as and when necessary. Because maybe many a times you are not realizing that you need a certain stakeholder to get engaged, but the stakeholder is aware. But if you do not maintain that transparency, maybe the stakeholder will not be aware that there is a certain situation with your project which that particular stakeholder can help you with. So that is why it is important for us to ensure that stakeholders are continuously engaged. So, as I have been mentioning, the key takeaway is that agile practices like regular communication and feedback loops to help reduce stakeholder related risks. Keep your stakeholders engaged. Do not cut corners with your reviews, with your demos, so that you have more than enough opportunities for collecting feedback throughout your project and implement those feedbacks to improve on your deliverables and to ensure that your deliverables are always aligned to the project objectives as well as the customer's value and benefits. All right, time for another set of statistics. 95% of organizations practice Agile to some extent. 60% of organizations report increased project visibility due to Agile adoption. And 56% of the organizations cite better alignment between business and IT because of using Agile methodology. And again, this is as per a study which was done by Digital AI. Now, if you think about these statistics, it clearly showcases that Agile methodology is much more feasible and adaptable and adoptable by organizations in our modern day, in our modern world, right? So Agile adoption is widespread, but organizations might still be facing risks related to scaling Agile and maintaining consistency. And that is where organizations have to focus. That is where your project can help become an OPA for the organization, which organization can adopt in the future and improve on their Agile adaptability. Now let us shift gears and try to look at risk management in distributed Agile teams. Agile teams generally face unique risks such as communication gap, because the individuals are not meeting face to face on a regular basis. Maybe they are virtual, maybe they are working out of different time zones or different geographies, which is gradually pushing them to work in silos, or they start to focus more on individual deliverables or individual accomplishments rather than the team or group deliverables, right? So this is one of the reasons why many a times agile can have problems from a team perspective. There can also be problems coming up from lack of collaboration perspective, wherein the team or the individuals might not be completely aligned with the various priorities of the project. The project is not coming up in the same sense to every individual team member. This is where you can use your shared understanding for the projects to ensure that everybody has the same thought process, has the same direction, has the same goal when they are working on the project, and therefore that will also help you reduce various kind of risks for your project. So the key takeaway here is that distributed teams must invest in tools and practices such as shared, task boards, or collaborative tools, whiteboards, cloud-based tools, so that they can continuously communicate and collaborate while they are working on the project, so that these kind of risks can be mitigated. You can make use of tools such as Teams or Zoom or Slack or WebEx, whatever is there available within your organization. Please make sure that you are using them to the fullest of their capabilities to improve or increase the collaboration within your team members. All right, time for another statistics, and this time it is a big one. PMI found out that for every $1 billion spent on projects, 122 millions are lost due to poor project performance. That is the cost of poor risk management on projects. If you wrap your head around this staggering number, it will help you identify how important risk management is for projects and what is happening across the globe. When you accumulate or when you summarize this whole expenditure, it is huge, and that is what we as project professionals should try to reduce to the best of our capabilities, right? So if you think about it, the cost is not involved with better risk management. The cost spikes when your risk management is poor. So effective risk management in Agile is not just about avoiding failures. It is also about maximizing your return on investment by the organization for your projects, right?
Exactly, right? So if we talk about the difference between negative risks and positive risks, I think this takeaway summarizes it beautifully. It's not only about avoiding problems, it's also about exploiting opportunities.
Absolutely. So let us understand, why do projects have risks, right? Projects have risks because projects are unique. Every single project is a unique endeavor which has never been taken up. Yes, it can be very similar to a past project or to a historical project, but not every single aspect, not every single deliverable is going to be similar, right? Because that is what is inherent to the nature of projects, that they are supposed to be unique and they are supposed to be, therefore, undertaking work which has never been done before. Okay. Projects often can mean doing something that has never been done before, or it can lack a certain amount of precedent, which increases risks for your project, or which increases the uncertainty or complexity for your projects. Another problem is that with projects, change is always inherent, change is always possible. Why change is constant for projects? Because many a times markets shift, many a times the technologies evolve, many a times the customer requirements or needs change, and the projects are supposed to cater to those, right? And that is where the projects need to adapt, But this adaptability or this flexibility also introduces potential risks. There is also a certain element of human involvement with projects. People make mistakes, they have varying skills, they have varying expertise, they have different kind of biases or opinions or experiences, insights, right? And sometimes these things can also play on your project, which can increase the risk, which can you know which can make things go not as per what has been originally planned for. Okay, so Agile embraces the idea that change is inevitable, but it is rarely unsurmountable. Instead of trying to eliminate all risks, which is impossible, Agile rather focuses on early detection, so that, as I was mentioning previously, the sooner you can respond to a risk, the easier it would be and the less costlier it would be to respond to that particular risk. Try to use frequent check-ins in terms of daily stand-ups or your sprint reviews to help catch risks when they are smaller or when they are more manageable. Try to identify Agile's flexibility, the iterative nature of Agile, which will allow for adjustments along the way. If a risk materializes, the team can adapt to those particular risks or to their way of working to ensure that the risk is responded to. To give you a real life example of this particular situation or of this particular mechanism, let us take a software project. A company launches a new app. Halfway through the development, a critical security flaw is discovered during the information security review. Okay, this risk could lead to data breaches and reputational damage for the organization. Or think about a marketing campaign where a product launch is planned around a celebrity influencer, right? Unexpectedly, the celebrity gets caught in a scandal, which therefore jeopardizes the whole campaign. Or think about a construction project, right? Wherein a new building is under construction, the supply chain disruptions cause a shortage of the essential materials, of the essential raw materials, which leads to delay and increased costs. Okay. So the project failure rates, if you think about the project failure rates, as per the various studies which has happened in the industry, the study suggests that a significant percentage of projects fail to meet their original goals, which is estimated to be around 50 to 70% of the times. Risks are therefore a major contributing factors in such kind of scenarios. There can also be cost overruns, wherein research indicate that many large projects have a significant cost overrun just because the risks were not caught or they were not foreseen ahead of time. So this brings us to the fact that risk management is very, very important. And we have already looked at the various scenarios and statistics as to what might happen with your project if risk management is not managed properly, if risk is not managed properly, right? So the importance of risk management comes from the fact that we should be proactive with risk management rather than reactive, wherein try to foresee the risks before or ahead of time and try to identify a strategy or a response for that risk and try to implement that strategy as early as possible. Also, the project manager can try to understand the risks to make better informed decision and to therefore prioritize various types of tasks within the project. This will also help build a certain amount of stakeholder confidence within the project, wherein the stakeholders will also be able to come forward or will be able to support the project better if the project is managing the risks effectively. So we have already discussed about what can cause risks and how to use Agile to our own benefit, how to use Agile's inherent nature and framework and methodologies and processes and feedback loops to our own benefit and advantage. So let us quickly take a look at the possible solutions towards managing risks in our agile projects. So first of all, you need to embrace agile. Use the iterative development, wherein you are going to break your projects into smaller batches, into smaller sprints, which will therefore help you allow to have frequent reviews, frequent demos, collect feedbacks, enable early risk detection, and also offer a certain amount of flexibility for the project to adapt as you move forward with the project. Okay, it will not be very restrained when you're working on the project. With agile, you can make your project flexible and open to change. An example would be where your software company uses agile. After every sprint, they test new features. If you are from software industry or if you have been exposed to software projects, you would know that this is absolutely how software projects work. The reason why they do that is because they are trying to catch bugs or high priority items not being completed as early as possible within these particular sprints, so that later on these small nitty-gritties do not end up into snowballing into major issues for the project. Studies show that agile projects have 64% of success rate when you compare to the 49% of success rate of traditional or waterfall or predictive methods. The second strategy or solution that you can make use of is to invest in robust risk management. First of all, you need to have a risk assessment done for your risks. You cannot be, not strategic about your risk management. So use your risk assessment to identify, analyze, and prioritize your potential risks as and when they are identified or as and when they can be foreseen for your project. Once you have assessed your risks, make sure that you have a mitigation strategy or a response strategy developed for your project, so that you can minimize the impact on of the high priority risks or the risks which have high probability of occurring for your projects. An example would be where a construction company is able to identify weather delays as a risk. They can create a buffer in project timeline to accommodate potential delays. Where this buffer is going to come from? This buffer is going to come from your contingency reserve, right? So that is how you also ensure that you are effectively using your reserves that you have for your projects. Okay. Statistics say that companies with effective risk management can save up to 25% annually. Talk about return on investment.
Yes, sir. The contingency reserve is a formal word for buffer, isn't it? When I was new to project management, I used to say I added some buffer, and my management used to get angry, right? When I used the word contingency reserve, they were liking it.
They were all stars. Absolutely. And over and beyond that, we can also use open communication or the culture of having open communication to our own advantage when it comes to risk management in agile projects. We can enable transparency within the project team members, so that they are able to openly discuss any kind of potential risks they are encountering or they are able to foresee, because it is not that the project manager alone himself or herself will be able to work on the risks. There can be situations that your project team members will be able to identify risks. So make use of that, take advantage of that. Also try to enable collaboration, because if you can promote teamwork to address risks collectively, or if they are able to collaborate and therefore they are able to see a longer vision or a broader vision for the project, they will also be able to identify risks which maybe individually each team member will not be able to isolate or identify. But when multiple team members or more than one team member come together to collaborate, they are also getting visibility to each other's work, and therefore they will be able to identify what kind of dependencies and therefore what kind of risks their individual pieces of work can identify or can encounter. A very good example for this particular situation is when a marketing team holds weekly meetings to discuss campaign progress and potential roadblocks. Because different teams are marketing in different areas or in different geographies or territories, as we call it in marketing world, they will be able to identify what kind of risks they can encounter and what kind of strategies on the ground are effective. And the same information can also be used by other team members by using the already existing risk management plan and deriving out of it. If you talk about statistics, teams with open communication are 20% more productive and therefore much less susceptible to encountering risks which can snowball into major issues or problems later on with the project.
Yeah, I was saying this is such a simple technique, right? Challenging the status quo, personal safety, as some frameworks call it, right? Create an environment such that team does not feel unsafe to ask questions. And I have noticed that if we practice this, it is so effective. But yet, so many project managers ignore this. Yeah.
Another solution. Let's take a look at another solution. We can make use of continuous monitoring and adaptation for our agile projects. Now, take into account the fact that agile already is going to embrace change. Agile is already adaptable. Agile is already flexible. If those properties or those characteristics already exist for your project, why not make use of them? Why not take advantage of them? Right? So, for your agile projects, regularly monitor your project milestones and key performance indicators, the deliverables that you have for your project from a not just from a scope perspective, but also from the budget or quality or schedule perspective to ensure that you are able to identify risks from any of these aspects of the project and strategy and respond to those particular risks as much as possible as early as possible. You can adapt to the various strategies so that you can be prepared well in advance to adjust your various management plans, project management plans, or various subsidiary management plans based on these changing circumstances. An example here would be where a product launch team tracks the sales data closely. If sales are slow, it obviously showcases that the customer is not liking the product. And therefore, there is a certain adaptability or certain flexibility that has to be brought into the product, and the product has to be evolved so that the customers can welcome this particular product. Statistics say that companies that adapt quickly are 30% more likely to succeed. Another solution that we can use here is to learn from our past experiences. You already have your repositories, you already have your retrospectives, you already have your lessons learned, you already have them documented in your organizational assets. Why not make use of them, right? So please make sure that when you're trying to have an effective risk management strategy, you do not skip through reviews. You do not miss your demos. You do not cut corners with these. Conduct thorough reviews to identify various lessons learned from past projects or from the earlier batches or earlier loops of your current project. It is not just important for us to learn these things, these information, but also to ensure that we are sharing them across with other team members and with other stakeholders. Wherein we can share best practices, we can share lessons learned, we can share what is working, what is not working, or what we can adapt so that it starts working for the project. All these things should be taken into consideration when it comes to risk management. An example here would be a company which is documenting common risks and mitigation strategies in the knowledge base for future projects, which becomes a ready to refer kind of a document for future projects. If you talk about statistics, companies that learn from their past projects improve their success rate by up to 15%. Again, with every single statistic, we are noticing, we are observing that organizations are going to save so much more by having an effective risk management plan for their project. So now that we have looked at the various solutions we can implement, let us also take a look at the various techniques we can use in our day-to-day project management life to make our risk management even more effective. Starting with the first technique, that is Spike. In Agile, Spike is a time-boxed research or experimentation activity which is used to reduce uncertainty and mitigate risks. Think of it as a deep dive to explore unknowns before committing to a solution. Why spikes matter? For risks, because uncertainty essentially is a risk which Spike can address, right? When teams face unclear requirements or untested technologies or changing environments or complex problems or evolving market conditions, it can lead to delays, rework, or failed deliverables. So spikes essentially help us de-risk the deliverables, de-risk the project. By dedicating time to investigating these unknowns, teams can make informed decisions to avoid any kind of costly mistakes, which will gradually become even more costlier as the project progresses.
This is exactly why I like spikes. Coming from waterfall world, I'm pretty sure you might have experienced this. Uh, in waterfall projects, when I was a team member and I had to ask for some extra time to research something, my project manager used to refuse it, right? Because the cost there is based on the scope that you're committed. And it used to be painful to accommodate this additional research with existing commitment, and it was not effective, right? So when I was new to the agile world, spikes were a big relief that I can put aside some time during a sprint trying to de-risk or reduce the uncertainty of any requirement or any technical impediment or anything like that.
Absolutely, absolutely, very true. And this is a struggle that I'm sure many of us would have already had in their day-to-day project management life, wherein they do not get enough time to research and uncover or unravel some of the things that we want to eventually work on. Absolutely true. Now, how do spikes work? Talking about spikes, how do they work? Spikes are essentially time boxed because we cannot give n or x amount of time, or endless for that matter. X or n would be incorrect for me to say. Endless amount of time to a team member to research on something. So that is why we have to time box it. As a project manager, your focus is not just going to be on risk, your focus is going to be on all the aspects at any given point in time, right? So to manage risks, you cannot compromise on quality. For managing risks, you cannot compromise on schedule. For managing risks, you cannot compromise on cost, and so on and so forth, right? So that is why from a schedule perspective, we have to make sure that spikes are time boxed, essentially wherein spikes are ranging from a few hours to a couple of days to avoid any kind of over investment in research. If you think about Parkinson's law, it says that any amount of time, any amount of work is eventually going to fill up the whole time that you have available. So whether it is 1 hour worth of work, whether it is 10-hour worth of work, it will fill up your whole day, right? So that is why use spikes intelligently. Also, spikes should have a focused goal. They need to have a clear objective, like evaluating a new tool or prototyping a feature or using an experimentation or simulation or understanding a certain technical challenge, right? And it should always be very objective. A spike cannot be subjective. It should be outcome driven, wherein the result should be an actionable knowledge such as a POC or a proof of concept, a decision, or a refined backlog item. That is the intent behind having spikes, and behind us investing time into research.
Okay. Let me give you
A quick example about specs. Imagine your team needs to integrate a new API, but you're unsure if it meets your requirement. Instead of guessing or guesstimating, you can run a spike to test the API and evaluate its feasibility. This would reduce the risk of building an unstable foundation.
now
Talking about another technique, you might remember towards the starting of this webinar, we discussed that we can make use of the feedback loops to our advantage. That is another technique that we generally use for risk management in projects, in agile projects. Agile teams deliver working increments at the end of each time box, at the end of each cycle, at the end of each loop, which allows the stakeholders to provide early and continuous feedback. This help this helps in catching risks. This helps in identifying or uncovering risks, such as misaligned requirements or technical issues before they get escalated on. So make use of your feedbacks. As I mentioned previously, do not cut corners with your reviews. Do not skip your demos. They are going to be very, very helpful as you move forward with your projects and in ensuring that there are no risks with your deliverables or there are no risks with your work packages or with your work items that you're managing for the project.
now another technique that you can
Use is iterative problem solving. That is, instead of waiting till the end of the project to address risks, which we essentially do with predictive projects, right? Agile teams tackle them iteratively. That is, with every cycle, with every loop, Agile is going to tackle the risks which it has encountered or which it has identified at any given point in time. So each sprint would include planning, execution, review, analysis, and therefore create opportunities to adapt and course correct as needed when it comes to risk management.
another technique would
Be to use transparency and collaboration. I have mentioned this previously as well that transparency and collaboration within the project team members is going to go a long way when it comes to risk management, when it comes to effective risk management for your agile projects. So make use of your daily stand-ups, make use of your reviews, your retrospectives, so that you can foster an open communication and collaboration within your team members, and for that matter, expand the horizon and also include your stakeholders into these communication and collaboration sessions.
which will
Help unearth or surface the risks early on, and then the entire team can start working on mitigating them, responding to them, or to resolving those particular risks.
already one more technique
That you can use is time boxing instead of overcommitting to your projects, because many a times it happens that the customer or the product owner is pushing hard on getting additional work completed or getting more work completed within less amount of time, but a project manager or a project professional should not always give way. They should always evaluate before agreeing to that. So by breaking work into short, manageable chunks, teams can avoid overcommitting and to unrealistic goals, so that at any given point in time, they do not fail. They are able to commit to what they are able to deliver to what they have committed to, rather than overcommit and underdeliver. This would reduce the risk of burnout, missed deadlines, missed milestones, or poor quality deliverables. Because if you try to pace up unnecessarily without focusing on quality, without focusing on what is needed, and without focusing on every single aspect of a deliverable, completion, which is essentially from a definition of done perspective, you will be able to avoid many, many risks for your projects. All right, now that we have discussed about the solutions as well as the techniques that we can use for risk management, let us quickly take a look at few case studies so that we can understand how risk management can be, implemented in our agile projects. In the first case study, the challenge is that a multinational corporation with operations in US, Europe, and Asia has faced inefficiencies due to disparate systems and processes.
The solution
Here can be to identify a strategic program to consolidate their ERP and CRM systems, implementing standardized processes and best practices across all regions so that not every individual region is working on their own siloed processes and mechanisms and procedures. The result of this would be, that the organization is able to achieve a 60% improvement in operational efficiency, reduce their costs by 25%, and have a greater customer satisfaction score, an improved CSAT score.
Let us take a look
at the next case study. Here, the challenge is that a Fortune 500 company is required to modernize its IT infrastructure to support its growth and innovation goals. The solution here, which was presented, was to spearhead a digital transformation initiative wherein the legacy systems can be migrated to the cloud and AI-powered automation and enhanced cybersecurity measures are implemented so that the whole infrastructure is not just future ready, it is also very well safe and secured. The results of this particular solution was that the organization was able to achieve increased agility because of the solutions now based out of cloud rather than their legacy systems, reduced time to market for new products, and have an even better data security in place.
Our next case study is about enhancing the
customer experiences. The challenge which was faced by the organization, which was an e-commerce organization, was to improve their customer experience and increase the customer loyalty. The solution that they used was to implement a customer-centric program wherein they leveraged data analytics to personalize customer interactions, streamline processes, and enhance customer support. The results that was achieved in this particular case was that the organization had better CSAT scores, improved customer retention rates, and it also boosted their revenues. Now that we have taken a look at the various case studies, let us take a look at the role of a PM when it comes to risk management in agile projects. First of all, in agile projects, it is not always the manager. It is also the leader who is going to lead the team. And a project manager is supposed to be both. That is, a project manager is supposed to be a leader as well as a manager to the project team at various points in time, depending on the composition and needs of the project team. The best leadership style that the project manager can use in such cases is the servant leadership style, wherein the project manager is helping the team or enabling the team to focus and upskill and grow in a certain direction, or move in a certain direction when it comes to the project. Therefore, the servant leader can help facilitate risk awareness. The servant leader can also remove various kinds of impediments. The servant leader can protect the team and also promote collaboration. All of them are very important values to be that should be there with a servant leader, right? So in conclusion, up until now, whatever we have discussed is that risks are always inherent to projects. You cannot have projects which does not have risk. It is an inbuilt feature, so to say, for projects. So be always prepared to encounter risks, and whenever you have risks, always be proactive towards your risk management. Prepare your strategies based on the analysis that you have, that you are going to do for your risks. Use the adaptive or the agile approach rather for the benefit of your risk management, to the advantage of your risk management. Use key agile practices such as reviews or retrospectives or feedback loops to ensure that your risk management is robust and ensure that you have an appropriate risk management strategy to setting up your project for success.
Okay, thank you very much, Sudeep. That was quite insightful. And in my personal opinion, a good project manager is good in risk management, change management, and emotional intelligence. And the last one, many people don't agree with me, but as people, as project managers, we are bound to deal with people, whether we like them or not. And I think
Exactly.
we'll make another webinar on emotional intelligence. This is quite insightful, and thank you very much. And to the audience, we would like to once again remind you that we are conducting a weekend program called Mastering Project Management, which is going to cover your qualification for PMP, the 35 hours that you need, and and we'll be providing hands-on training on both Microsoft Project and Atlassian Jira. And you would get access to LMS, and there would be WhatsApp support, and the classes would be on Zoom, recorded on Zoom, right? So it's available for people all over the world to join, and if you're interested in project management in general or PMP. So you can either reach out to us on this number or click on the description and register yourself. Now, once again, Sudeep, it was a pleasure having you here, and I'm looking forward for more webinars. And once again, big heads up to the audience. We are planning to talk a lot about artificial intelligence in project management, particularly with Sudeep. So please like and subscribe and mark for notifications so that you don't miss it out. Thank you, Sudeep.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Me.